without abortion access. Because abortion is freedom. The ability to decide when or if or how we expand our families is a foundational and sacred right. We need a future where people can bring pregnancies to term, where people can choose to end their pregnancies, where people can decide are able to parent with joy, dignity, and without fear of state violence against our children, our loved ones, and our communities. This is a future we are striving for, a future in which policy is based in abundance and not in deprivation. Passing the Women's Health Protection Act, which establishes a statutory right for healthcare providers to provide and for their patients to receive abortion care, free from medically necessary restrictions, limitations, and bans, is one step toward this future of justice and abundance for our communities. As we've seen, laws like SB 8 are a violation of not only our rights, but they also usurp the sacred bonds of community that we need. This abortion ban leaves pregnant people in desperate straits. And grotesquely, it weaponizes our neighbors against each other by encouraging bounties, of all things, on those who may seek to help pregnant people get the abortion care they need. Every day, our friends in Texas fight to make sure people have access to the abortion care they need and deserve. And I am in awe of the providers, funders, advocates, and volunteers working day in and day out to keep access to abortion care available for people. They are true heroes today. Like all bans and restrictions, and by intention, SB 8's harms are not equally felt. The true insidious nature of abortion bans are that they only continue the cycle of harm for those who are already facing violence and deprivation, those who already live at the crossroads of oppression. For people of color, LGBTQ people, young people, and people who struggle to make ends meet, laws like SB 8 can cause insurmountable barriers to abortion care, and there are downstream impacts. People are having to drive over 200 miles for care in Texas, traveling out of state and pushing providers in other states to their limits as well. Beyond that, a disregard for our bodily autonomy in the state is also a sign of a state that disregards our overall health. As we've seen in Texas and so many other states that have passed abortion bans and restrictions, they are also facing crises of COVID ravaging our communities and also a maternal health crisis. Laws like SB 8 only further serve to exacerbate these tragedies more. Beyond health, of course, all these things are linked together. States that move to restrict our bodies are also states that move to restrict our political power at the voting booth. Make no mistake, these are linked efforts, funded and supported by the same people. Well, today, we push back and say no more. And on Saturday, we take the fight to the streets across the country and here in D.C. for the Day of Action for Abortion Justice. I am so proud to stand here today representing tens of thousands of ultraviolet members who have taken action after SB 8 went into effect. And I'm so glad to be standing here today in solidarity and community with my friends around me who you'll hear speak today to support the passage of the Women's Health Protection Act. The time is now to pass this critical piece of legislation. We are celebrating the historic passage of this law in the House last week thanks to the enduring leadership and efforts of Representative Chu. Thank you so much, Representative. And the support, of course, of Speaker Pelosi and President Biden. We stand here today representing over 300,000 people who took action in the last 2 weeks to demand that our senators move swiftly and follow the leadership and courage of their colleagues in the House to pass WIPA. This 300,000 is but a microcosm of the vast majority of Americans who support legal abortion. WIPA is popular. WIPA is necessary. Our colleagues Sanaya Ultraviolet, Moms Rising, NARAL, Move On, Catholics for Choice, and the National Council of Jewish Women are here to tell Leader Schumer that we are so happy to advocate and lift up the voices of our communities who support passing laws like the Women's Health Protection Act. Today you will hear from Representative Chu and also Senator Blumenthal about their efforts to make this law a reality. In closing, in our letter to Leader Schumer that we sent today ahead of our petition delivery, we conveyed to him the urgency of passing WIPA and the support of the American people behind it. To be clear, a vote against WIPA is a vote for laws like SB 8. I'm honored now to introduce a great champion fighter for reproductive rights, Representative Judy Chu from the great state of California. Thank you so much, Representative.
Woo. We made history. We made history this past Friday when, for the first time ever, we passed the Women's Health Protection Act out of the House. And it was so gratifying to see over 40 members of the House get up from all the different states, frontliners, longtime members, everybody speak out about the necessity of having the freedom to make choices over your own body. And so now it is time for the Senate to act, and I am so glad that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced he would do and place the historic vote on the Senate floor. This is significant, and let me tell you, all of this would not be possible without the tireless support of my colleague and Senate co-lead on WIPA, Senator Richard Blumenthal. I also want to thank the many, many groups who brought us to this point. NARAL, Pro-Choice America, and so many of our coalition partners who are here today as well. I can truly say that last week's historic vote would never have happened without advocates like you doing the work on the ground to make sure that we had a pro-choice majority in Congress. And so now, with another vote coming up, we need the Senate to know that a majority of Americans are on our side and demand that we act immediately to protect our bodies from radical right-wing politicians. And that is why last week's vote to pass the Women's Health Protection Act meant so much to me and to others around the country. It is our way of fighting back against years of attack on our right to control and make decisions about our own bodies. You see, ever since Roe versus Wade, anti-choice advocates have been trying to find new ways to make legal abortion care impossible to access. And in doing so, they've adopted a two-pronged strategy. First, they've packed the courts at every level with anti-choice judges, culminating in the blatant court packing under McConnell and Trump. Second, they've been crafting state laws designed to create a challenge to Roe for these judges to uphold. And in fact, we've seen states pass 500 laws since 2000 alone, with 90 abortion restrictions passed since the start just of this year. It's clear we need a unified federal response to these attacks, which is why we passed the Women's Health Protection Act out of the House. The Texas law, however, was the most bone-chilling of all. It deputizes vigilantes to harass anyone who is helping someone obtain an abortion, from a doctor to clinic staff to an Uber driver. And it prohibits abortions at 6 weeks before most know that they're pregnant, and with no exception for rape or incest. But it's not an outlier. There are hundreds of other anti-choice laws that have been adopted to chip away at Roe. Mandatory ultrasounds, waiting periods, or funerals for fetuses are all meant to shame patients who are trying to access abortion care, while needless requirements like wider doors or hospital admitting privileges are meant to make it harder for a doctor to be able to practice medicine, forcing them to close their doors or turn away patients. And worse yet, because of McConnell's and Trump's court packing, now there's a Supreme Court willing to tolerate such blatant attacks on established precedent. We know that more attacks are coming. The Mississippi 15-week ban is coming up in December. We cannot rely, certainly, on Amy Coney Barrett or Brett Kavanaugh to confirm our rights, Congress must protect the rights of women and pregnant people in every zip code, putting an end to the attack on abortions once and for all. And so the Women's Health Protection Act is how we do it. We need to establish this right for providers to provide abortion care and for patients to receive that care, and to do it in a way that prioritizes choice and freedom over politics. Whether or not someone gets an abortion is a decision that should be made between them and their doctor and their loved ones, period. So today, as we prepare for a pivotal Senate vote on WIPA, we're calling on those who represent the pro-choice majority in the Senate to join us in taking this important step. I'm proud to be standing with so many incredible leaders as we fight for the right for everyone to access safe, legal abortion care, regardless of where they live. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Chu, for those powerful remarks and for your leadership. I really appreciate your leadership in our fight for reproductive freedom. And as the lead sponsor of the Women's Health Protection Act and introducing this crucial legislation in such a monumental moment. I'm Travis Bally, Organizing Director at NARAL Pro-Choice America, and I am proud to be here today, joining with each and every one of you as we work together to meet this pivotal moment. Our movement stands at a crossroads. A direct threat to Roe v. Wade is set to be heard by the anti-choice supermajority on the Supreme Court. Texas has just enacted a cruel ban on abortion, the most extreme ban we have seen yet. And lawmakers hostile to our fundamental rights are lining up to use that ban as a blueprint to roll back reproductive freedom in their own states. These anti-choice, anti-freedom politicians are determined to undermine the future we are building here together. The one we are here today to fight for. One where each of us, no matter who we are or where we live, has the freedom to dream our best life and live it well. As we've seen play out in Texas, there is no law there's no low these extremists won't sink to in order to keep their grip on power and control. And there's no question about who will experience the consequences of their sinister agenda the most. Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian and Pacific Islanders, and other people of color, the LGBTQ community, and those with low incomes, and others who already face the greatest barriers to accessing the care they need. These attacks on our freedom will only exacerbate the roadblocks to care that these communities face each and every day. So even as Roe stands, we know its promises are simply not enough. That's why we must act now. There is no time to waste. Recognizing the urgency of this moment, our reproductive freedom majority in the House passed the Women's Health Protection Act last week in a historic vote. Now, our leaders in the Senate must do the same. We must act immediately to protect the right to abortion by passing the Women's Health Protection Act. And that's why the work we are doing here today is so important. At NARAL Pro-Choice America, our 2.5 million members know the stakes are higher than ever, and we are mobilizing across the country and to make clear that we are the majority and we cannot and will not allow these attacks on reproductive freedom to go unanswered. When anti-choice extremists come for our freedom to make our own decisions about our lives and our futures, we will be there. When we won't stop showing up and fighting for the freedoms we hold dear. There is too much on the line not to. Thank you, and please join me in welcoming Senator Blumenthal, the lead Senate sponsor of the Women's Health Protection Act and a longtime champion of reproductive freedom. We are so thankful for this critical work to safeguard reproductive freedom and work towards a vote on the Women's Health Protection Act in the Senate. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to NARAL Pro-Choice America for bringing us together on this spectacularly beautiful day. I wish we were here for a different occasion. I wish we were here to celebrate constitutional freedoms. And in a way that we are. We're here to fight for constitutional freedom and say no to the state restrictions that would cut back and, in fact, eliminate a woman's right to decide when and whether to have children. It's that simple. A woman's control over her own body. There's a constitutional right at stake here that states are trying to restrict in unprecedented numbers and unprecedented ways, with a Supreme Court that is unprecedented in the kind of unconstitutional repressive measures that it is willing to condone and, in fact, encourage. That's why this measure is so critical and why I am proud to be the lead co-sponsor in the Senate. The Women's Health Protection Act essentially just codifies the constitutional right embodied in Roe v. Wade. It's that simple. Against all of the state restrictions, it says, can't do it. No restrictions on constitutional rights that impede a woman's right to decide when and whether to have children. So I am going to fight for this measure in the Senate. I want to thank Congresswoman Chu and Speaker Pelosi for their successful fight in the House. It's a model of what we can do in the Senate. We now have all but 2 members of the Democratic caucus as co-sponsors, and I'm hopeful we will be united and that will attract bipartisan support, because there should be nothing partisan about this constitutional right, which is so essential to economic well-being, physical health, and basic freedom. So we are going to fight for the Women's Health Protection Act. I'm thankful to Senator Schumer for bringing it to the floor, and I will just finish on this note. The men and women of America are going to hold my colleagues accountable. We are going to put on the record how every member of the United States Senate votes on this essential constitutional guarantee. The Women's Health Protection Act is going to be a test of accountability for members of the Senate. And the voters of America are going to hold my colleagues accountable. I hope they will listen to the 400,000 voices that are represented in these petitions. These 400,000 voices speak for the vast majority of Americans who want this constitutional right to be protected. The Women's Health Protection Act is the best way to make it real and assure that this right doesn't depend on a woman's zip code, that it is for everyone. And let's be very blunt here. The Texas law primarily affects women of color and women who are poor. There are a lot of women who can come to states like Connecticut, where we have guaranteed that right in our statutes, regardless of what the Supreme Court does. But there are a lot of women who can't travel, who don't have the means, who don't have the wherewithal. And it falls on them. This burden falls on them disproportionately. So we're talking about a racial justice issue here, and an economic justice issue, and a constitutional justice issue. And we're going to make sure that justice is upheld. Thank you all.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Martin, Senior Vice President at Moms Rising, an online and on-the-ground organization with more than 1 million members. We work to improve family economic security, stop discrimination, and build a nation where businesses and families can thrive. Moms Rising members and moms and women and the majority of people in this country oppose the laws in Texas, Mississippi, and other states that take away our right to make our own decisions about if and when to have children and how many children to have. We know the anti-choice laws deny us access to basic health care we need. We know they take away our dignity and our autonomy. We know they have a disproportionately harmful impact on Black, Latina, and Indigenous low-income communities, young people, immigrants, individuals living with disabilities, and the LGBTQ community, and others who too often are left out of conversations about gender and racial equity, justice, and access. We know that pregnant people deserve to be able to make the deeply personal decisions about abortion care without interference from politicians. And we know that ensuring families can have access to paid leave and quality affordable child care in a society that prioritizes racial equity and respects immigrant and gender rights is essential to racial justice, healthy families, and communities. And we know that most people who have abortions are mothers. Anti-choice laws cause us real harm. SB 8 in Texas is especially draconian and poses a danger to all those who need abortion care. Banning this basic health care at 6 weeks of pregnancy, which is well before most people even know they are pregnant, is blatantly unconstitutional. It's callous and it is appalling. And every day that SB 8 remains in place, moms and parents are suffering. The U.S. Supreme Court failed to block this disgraceful Texas law, and now it is clear that we cannot count on the court to protect our most fundamental rights, so Congress simply must. Enactment of the Women's Health Protection Act is absolutely essential to the health, autonomy, and fundamental rights and dignity of America's moms because it will protect access to abortion care for everyone in this country, no matter where they live. The U.S. House of Representatives has done its part by passing the Women's Health Protection Act, and we are now counting on the U.S. Senate to protect our health and our rights and protect our families and do the same. America's moms want and urgently need the Women's Health Protection Act to become law. Thank you so much. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Jamie Manson from Catholics for Choice.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm Jamie Manson, President of Catholics for Choice, and I could not be more honored to be here today, representing the overwhelming majority of Catholics and people of faith who tirelessly advocate for reproductive freedom, not in spite of our religious and moral values, but because of them. Our petition reflects our diverse traditions, but what we share is our commitment to compassion and dignity for all, particularly the most marginalized members of our society, and our dedication to defending moral agency and true religious liberty. Those same values are reflected in the Women's Health Protection Act, essential legislation that would safeguard abortion access nationwide and dismantle the injustices that obstruct our freedom to make choices about our bodies, our families, and our futures. Last week's House passage of this critical bill was a victory for reproductive, economic, racial, and Catholic social justice that results from decades of leadership and organizing by women of color. We are particularly grateful to Congresswoman Chu for her long-standing leadership and to Speaker Pelosi, our favorite pro-choice Catholic, and 71 other Catholic co-sponsoring representatives for whom this vote marked a demonstration of their faithful pro-choice Catholicism. We know that Senator Blumenthal will do all that he can to encourage his colleagues to approve WIPA, but we will get to work mobilizing Catholics and other people of faith across the country to urge the Senate to do the right thing and to urge President Biden to sign the bill into law. We are one step closer to a world where all people are empowered to determine their reproductive destinies according to their own consciences and circumstances. Let's make this vision a reality. I'd now like to introduce Catholic for Choice's wonderful partner, Sheila Katz, CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Sheila Katz, CEO of National Council of Jewish Women. I'm honored to be here among my colleagues, as well as reproductive freedom champions, Congresswoman Judy Chu and Senator Richard Blumenthal, to share our collective efforts of gathering more than 300,000 signatures from people in every state who are in support of the Women's Health Protection Act. Today, our Jewish community is celebrating Simchat Torah, a joyous holiday that marks the restarting of the reading of our Torah, our sacred text. It's a day where we re-examine our creation stories and take a deeper look at a text we've read time and time again as we recommit to creating communities and a world inspired by our values. It's a day of dancing, singing, and celebration. Just as Simchat Torah offers the opportunity for a restart, the Women's Health Protection Act, WIPA, offers a future where every person, regardless of who they are and where they're from, is free to make personal health decisions that are best for themselves, their lives, and their families without political interference. Just last week, the House gave us a reason to celebrate by passing WIPA, but we still need action in the Senate before we can see meaningful change. This is urgent. Since 2011, lawmakers have passed more than 500 restrictive abortion laws through state legislatures, and already 2021 is the worst legislative year ever for abortion rights. The people most impacted are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women, members of the LGBTQ community, and those working to make ends meet who are already facing obstacles to health care. This is a racial justice issue. This is an economic justice issue. This is a health care issue. And this is an issue of compassion and dignity. Without the right to safely access abortion care in their own states, pregnant people are often forced to travel lengthy distances, to scramble to find childcare, and to contend with the threat of losing their jobs. They could be forced to carry a non-viable or unwanted pregnancy to term, or even criminalized for exercising their basic constitutional and human rights. This is not a fictional scenario. This is happening right now. As Jews, we believe in the power of compassion to build a just and fair society. This is also a critical religious freedom issue. Not every person in this country has the same belief on when life begins. One belief should not be forced on everyone else. In Judaism, we recognize abortion as essential health care that is not only permitted, but in some cases required by our tradition. NCJW has over 1,500 rabbis of all denominations currently speaking out about Jewish values and abortion justice and ensuring they provide pastoral care to the 1 in 4 people who can become pregnant who have abortions under the age of 45. 1 in 4. We all love someone who has had an abortion. Religious freedom is meant to be a shield to protect and never a sword to discriminate. And right now in the state of Texas, these rabbis can be sued for counseling their congregants on a medical procedure that is in line with our religious beliefs. That is not what religious freedom looks like. And as a reminder, we are commanded to love thy neighbor, not sue thy neighbor. To love thy neighbor, not report thy neighbor. The Women's Health Protection Act is the answer to abortion access and justice that we need, and it must pass in the Senate. To the people in the building behind me, we are counting on you. We are watching, we are voting, and we are tired of the excuses that continue to make pregnant people suffer in our country. This Congress, with the full support of the Biden administration, must do everything possible to pass this critical legislation. The majority of voters, including people of faith, support reproductive freedom. The midterm elections are only a year away, and we will remember whether this Congress represented the values of voters. We will not stop until our work to ensure we can all make our own moral and faith-informed decisions about our bodies, health, and future is complete. Thank you. And with that, to close us out, Emma Einhorn from Move On.
Thanks so much. My name's Emma Einhorn, and I'm a campaign director with Move On. It's an honor today to represent our millions of members and stand with so many allies and champions of reproductive freedom. As my colleagues have made clear, our rights are under attack like never before. We are in a 5-alarm fire because in Republican-packed courts and state houses, right-wing extremists are stripping back our legal protections in their decades-long campaign to strip us of our basic rights, our basic freedoms, our basic right to control our bodies, our right to the health care that we need. This vote on the Women's Health Protection Act is not just a routine vote. Countless lives and livelihoods are on the line, which is why millions of Move On members in every state and every congressional district are proud to show up with our allies to make clear to everyone in the Capitol that we are watching this vote, and we're not going anywhere. We will make sure that the world sees which senators are for protecting our health care and which are against. First, let's be clear. A vote against the Women's Health Protection Act or joining with Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans to block it from even coming to the floor is a vote in favor of Texas-style abortion bans. A vote against WIPA is a vote to support a vote against WIPA is a vote in support of overturning Roe v. Wade. A vote in support of WIPA is a vote in support of vigilante justice against healthcare seekers and healthcare providers. And a vote against WIPA is a vote to turn back the clock on generations of progress. If Congress does not show up and say enough is enough, we will see Texas-like laws spread across the country. This would have devastating impacts for communities of color who have egregiously high maternity mortality rates, for low-income communities who cannot afford to leave the state to receive care, and for all people by essentially removing all access to abortion care in state. Which is why we cannot accept Republicans once again abusing the Jim Crow filibuster when it comes to our basic rights, our freedoms, control of our bodies. The old college try is not enough here. This isn't a symbolic issue, and a symbolic vote is not enough. If Republicans filibuster this vital bill, then Democrats must pass it by any means necessary. Our bodies are not a political bargaining chip, and we are more important than this arcane and out-of-date Senate norms and procedure that's been abused for generations to block progress. Voters turned out in record numbers in 2020 to put Democrats in the White House, in Congress, in part to protect us in this very moment. We are seeing a ruthless, systemic, and highly effective attack on women, the likes of which we've never seen before. WIPA is a vital bill to push back, and honestly, for millions of us, it's a matter of life or death. And our fight doesn't end with WIPA either. Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and right-wing extremists packed the Supreme Court intentionally to create this showdown. Their goal all along was to abuse power and change the rules just to get a court to overturn Roe v. Wade. And now we're in limbo to see if they're going to be successful. We cannot allow Mitch McConnell to get away with these abuses. To truly protect our communities, we must reform the court and restore balance. We cannot and will not accept a Supreme Court that is nothing more than the political arm of Mitch McConnell and right-wing extremists. So our message is simple. Our millions of members are watching this vote. We're watching who is with us and who is against us. We're watching who will fight with us and who will just go through the motions. The attacks are different this time, and the response must be as well. Everything is on the line. Thanks, and I will invite Sonia from Ultraviolet to close us out.
Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers and to everyone who's here today. And then just again, a huge, huge thank you to our incredible champions, Congresswoman Chu and Senator Blumenthal, for their years of leadership on this and for championing us so far in this fight. We wouldn't be here without them. So honored to be here, and thank you so much. Again, everyone, this fight continues. When the vote happens, we'll be watching and keeping folks accountable. We'll be on the streets this weekend and throughout the next several weeks, and really throughout. Like, this is a fight for our lives and our health and our future, and we are going to give it our all. So thank you so much again, and I hope everyone has a lovely day, and please enjoy this lovely weather we're having. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
Well
much.
done. Thank you.
Can we get a picture of all of us?
Thank you.
Yeah.